It is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is
The Hyperspace.
Podcasting in the 25th century.
Welcome in, podcast pioneers, to the hyperspace. Podcasting in the 25th century. The interwebs first, and still only podcast. My name is Jared.
My name is Matt.
And I'm like,
So, gentlemen, I gotta tell you, maybe it's just living in the 25th century starting to get to me, starting to weird me out. I'm still not acclimated to it. Maybe it's the lighting inside my tube. I can't tell. But I tell you what, I had the weirdest dream last night.
What'd you dream about?
Well, it's kind of awkward to share, but
You must.
I had a dream that I was flying over this incredibly lame Tron-like circuit board, and I didn't know where I was going.
You know,
And when I woke up, I had to draw something, but I didn't have any paper because there's no paper here. So I wound up taking my pen on my bedroom wall and I drew what I saw.
what did you use for ink?
That's not important right
I
now.
think it's very important.
Wait. So, I may have had the same dream, Matt.
Well, you were in the dream. I didn't want to say it, but you were there. Mike, you were kind of there. It was a hairy ball in the distance, but I think it was you.
A golden nugget?
I don't know what it meant, guys. It could have meant anything.
You know what? I drew it down, too. I drew it. And you know what? I think if we got together, we'd find that we probably have the blueprints of a spacecraft.
I didn't want to say that, but that's what I was thinking. There's something,
Man.
I don't know. Mike, did you have the dream too?
No.
All right. Well, you can't come along with our epic journey to meet possibly aliens that are maybe the coolest things in the universe.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like there might be some disappointment ahead of you then.
You think so?
It
Possibly.
reminded me, though. It reminded me of a movie I saw as a kid back in the 20th century that I think we should talk about maybe a little later in the episode.
Do you think we're going to do a retroactive rewind review
Oh, yeah!
of the movie Explorers? Get out of here.
That's what we're going to do today.
I think it's appropriate since we all dreamed about these blueprints of the spacecraft.
Well, what's really going to make this thing light up is the fact that typically when we do a retroactive rewind review, Mike is usually the one who has seen all these movies, and then Jared and I, of course, have not. However, today, we're flipping it.
The tables have
the
turned.
script. Mike has never, in all of his extensive years, ever seen the movie Explorers. So we tasked Mike to watch this movie, and we're going to review it with Mike today.
That's right. But before we do that,
What?
I think we got some news from the interwebs.
News from the interwebs.
So there was some great news on the interwebs the other day. I saw that pre-production of Season 3 for The Mandalorian has begun.
Season 3,
Season 3.
they
We
haven't
haven't even seen-
dropped Season 2 yet.
I know.
I mean, with the Clone Wars coming to an end shortly, the Star Wars deficit was starting to loom, and I was very thankful to wake up that morning and read the news to see that Mandalorian Season 3 was not just greenlit, but it was actively being produced.
Actively.
Active.
And to hold us over until this fall when the Season 2 is released, we've got a nice little documentary series, an 8-part documentary series.
Wow, 8? Was it 8 episodes?
I think it's 8. Yeah.
I think that's as many as The Mandalorian was, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like we're getting a documentary about the making of The Mandalorian, which I think will be incredibly fascinating because it looks like they're literally using holodecks to make this show.
I saw the trailer. It's insane. That one shot where they go to hyperspace with him standing there,
Yeah.
I just want to be in that room with the lights turned off when they do that.
Yes. It looks amazing. So, and I think looking behind the curtain at how the show's made is going to be really interesting. I also hear we're getting some never-before-seen deleted content from Season 1. So, some deleted scene action there. That'll be good.
Pretty cool stuff. They kind of are setting the bar high for television production going forward.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, it's cool that they're making it, but it's just weird to me that they haven't even delivered the second one yet. I don't know. Sometimes I worry that they get too far ahead of themselves, you know? Like,
well,
what if they go like in a completely wrong direction on the series and, you know, instead of having like a buffer of time to respond to that, they're already committed to whatever idea they had in the third season. Does that make sense?
I've lived through that several times over on The Walking Dead, so
yeah.
I'm prepared for it. But, you know, I still have faith that it's going to be a good show. I think the right people are running the show there. So, you know, we'll see.
Well, I'm still waiting on Obi-Wan. That's the one I'm really excited about. I'm hoping that's still going to happen. And also, to piggyback on that, there's another... Of course, they keep announcing these people attached to Star Wars, and it never seems to come to fruition, but the creator of that Russian doll, I don't know if that's a series or a movie or what.
It's a show.
She's supposed to be doing a show, a Star Wars show. So,
well, I guess they're just handing them out. They're just handing them out to anybody. So
yeah.
I think we should probably go back in time and say, "Hey, can we have one too?"
You get a Star Wars, you get a Star Wars, and you get a Star Wars.
I want one that just goes over the Holdo story. We deserve more.
We deserve more.
We just
Admiral Holdo.
She just didn't get enough screen time for me.
Oh yeah, because you know, is the pink hair? Do the curtains and drape match? I mean, come on.
Oh man, dang.
And she's an admiral. Have some respect. Forget the fact that Akbar ate it so quickly and nobody cared.
I wonder if did Akbar's curtains and drapes match?
They all had the little
seaweed down there.
Little tentacle things that hung from his chin.
I think we've gotten so far off the topic here. You know what I think the only thing that's going to bring us back?
What's that?
Is a trip in the Thunder Road. I'd say let's go.
Hey, watch what you're doing. Shh, pass me the Phillips head. Don't like that. You need the ratchet. Here. I can't do anything with your hand in the way. It's stuck. Give me that thing. Here. Ouch! Hey, watch it. Shh. Be quiet, man. Bang like that, your mom's gonna wonder what we're doing. If this thing works, everyone's gonna wonder what we're doing. There. I think that's it. Yeah. Switch on the computer. Ready? Here goes.
From the director of Gremlins, Explorers, coming this summer from Paramount Pictures. The adventure begins in your own backyard.
Retroactive, rewind, review.
1985 was a big year for movies. We had Back to the Future, Rocky IV, and then we had Explorers, which was not part of that of those big films. It was actually released the week after Back to the Future, which is probably why no one had even heard of it until it hit VHS. And that's where I discovered Explorers, was VHS. And I tell you, Explorers, it was like the first girl that broke my heart. I thought the first 45 minutes of that movie, and I still think that to this day, is as good as any of the 1980s era sci-fi, the whole genre around like E.T. and Goonies and Gremlins and Back to the Future. I think the first 45 minutes of that movie can sit on a shelf with those movies easily. But then something happens. The aliens talk. And then it all goes somewhere completely different.
That was my experience with Explorers growing up. I discovered it as a rental. That's where I saw it for the first time, and I fell in love with it. I loved Explorers. I was obsessed with Explorers, but I had the same reaction. I never understood the third act. It didn't make any sense. But I really, really loved that movie. I think I made my parents rent it like every weekend when I was like 11 years old. It was like I would draw pictures of my own spaceship and be like, this could happen. This is one of those movies where some things are almost in your grasp, and they give it to you as a normal kid and say, you can do this because they did it too. And it was such a cool
like
movie.
I was Ben, Ethan Hawke's character. I was around his age. He liked sci-fi movies. He liked the space program and NASA and all that.
He liked peeking in on the girl next door's window.
Yeah.
It was hey, listen, that was the right age.
Yeah, who the heck? Yeah, I mean, I was right there with them. That movie was like total wish fulfillment. And then to get a transmission from aliens with instructions on how to build a spacecraft, I mean, and making the spacecraft out of junk from a junkyard. I was like, man, why can't this be my life? Why can't it be my life?
Explorers was an interesting movie when it came out. The production of Explorers was an interesting story by itself. But before we get into the nitty-gritty and the weeds of Explorers, Mike has never seen Explorers, and we just had him watch it. So, Mike, why don't you give us your plot recap from what you saw?
Sure, I'd love to. So, basically, a kid has a dream. From this dream, he gleans this new technology that he has his nerd friend build. They discover with this new technology that can go between points of space. So they build a spaceship, and then they get a transmission to go into space. They go into space, meet some aliens, and severely disappointed, come home, and they fly through some clouds. The end.
That is a great summation of that movie. Explorers was directed by Joe Dante, who had just come off the heels of a huge hit, Gremlins. So they were very happy to get Joe assigned to this. And Joe got the script, and actually the original script wasn't too far off from what we saw in the movie, except it didn't have a third act. And the third act had like one line on the script. It says, they go to the aliens' planet and play baseball. And that's how it was. That was the script he was handed. So this is a good example of a script with a lot of potential coming off the E.T. phenomenon of kids meeting aliens and doing, great things against authority. This was a big, big thing in Hollywood, and everyone was trying to get their piece of the pie on that. So Explorers was gonna be one of those movies. They had big names attached to it. They had Rob Bottin from
Rob Bottin.
Bottin. So they had him attached to it for makeup. They had ILM co-produce it, the first movie ILM ever co-produced at the time. So they were very excited that they were going to get a huge, huge box office hit here. But the problem was there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen on this one. And the studio started to play a little bit of politics, and they got nervous, and they sped up production. They said, they said we have to get it out by a certain date. We got to get it out fast. And it made them all cram in the script to get something done and produced. In the third act that they produced, they thought was going to be kind of pop culture-ish and kitschy, and it turned out to be the biggest flop with audiences of all time.
Yes.
Well, what happened was he submitted an edit of it, and they went, "Oh, okay, this is good." And he was like, "What? No, it's not done yet.
No, it's not finished." And well, his first cut was 3 hours and 15 minutes long.
Yeah, it was insane.
Good grief! I don't even know how you stretched that out into 3 hours.
No, I don't know.
I mean,
but the point of the movie becomes when you watch the movie, like Jared was saying, I think like one thing Joe Dante had a real knack for that, that's something that Spielberg sort of cornered the market on, was the ability to work with kids. And I think that Joe Dante showed that same skill with this movie, because a movie you brought up that I actually personally think is a little overrated is The Goonies. Like when you watch The Goonies, it's like they try, like the relationships with the kids are so forced, it becomes a little bit obnoxious. With this one, it's a lot more organic. And I think Dante really, had a really good ability at directing kids and giving them like a real, like a relationship that felt real. The same thing that Spielberg does. So I would hold like that as far as the stuff with the kids was, on par with anything Spielberg had done. Where the movie starts to, what the problem is once you watch the movie, when it's over, what really is the downfall of the movie is you're like, there was nothing gained from seeing the aliens. Like there was nothing that they didn't get any sort of insight. They didn't grow as characters. They just like went, saw these goofy aliens, and then they came back, and they weren't really escaping anything. Like when they left, it wasn't like, sometimes stories like this, people are like, they're fleeing from something like a bad home life or anything like home life or something like that. And apparently that stuff existed, but never made it into the movie. Like for instance, like when they go to the drive-in, there's a couple, a teenage couple, and apparently the boy in that car was supposed to be Ethan Hawke. What's his last name? It was supposed to be his brother, but that's never revealed.
Right.
And so, you never get. And then another thing too, when they were leaving, the character, I can't remember his name. He's in every Joe Dante movie.
Dick Miller.
He's the one who, he was the one in the helicopter who saw them. Like, when they were getting ready to leave, usually in a situation like that, there's some exterior force that's preventing them from leaving. Or there's like, they got to get to the ship in a certain amount of time, or they won't be able to go. It's just to build some sort of tension.
Yes.
And there wasn't. They just like the guy Dick Miller shows up and he's like, "Good luck," and then they fly off. So, well, the scene, the first time they take flight, that was actually a really cool scene where they were doing stuff kids would do. I really loved the fake movie they shot. And the actor that Dante uses a lot, who's
Picardo.
the doctor on, he's awesome. He was
his name was Star Killer.
Yeah,
and that was.
I'm sure that was a nod to Star Wars.
It was.
But
that was such a
that was
movie.
That was all great.
Do you see when he like fixed the prop that he messed up? He knocked a prop over and then leaned over and set it up right.
Oh no, I was watching it. Unfortunately, I was watching it on my phone, so I missed that. But all that stuff was good. But see, at that point, you don't know there's something wrong until, like you said, until you get to the aliens. You feel like the movie's building towards something, but then obviously it just falls flat. But that part of the movie, at first viewing, it works really well.
From what you're saying, and I agree 100%. I think the problem everybody has with this movie is that it's not a slapstick movie for the first two acts. It's actually quite a serious movie. I mean, they have some fun woven into it, but it's actually a serious movie. And
I don't know if I'd say serious, but it's not.
Well, it's not supposed to be like a drama.
No.
But it's not supposed to be slapstick, and it's kids putting this stuff together for a purpose, and everything that happens from the time that they create the Force Shield to the time that they put together the Thunder Road ship, everything is a accomplishment and a stepping stone in these first 2 acts where you're really traveling and you're really buying into it with them. And then the third act becomes a slapstick nightmare. And it changes the tone of the movie. It turns it on its head. And it's completely out of place and doesn't make any sense.
One thing I noticed when I watched it again about a week ago, and I hadn't watched the movie in years, was that I saw Ethan Hawke in that movie felt exactly like I did. He was like, what is going on?
You mean when he sees the aliens?
Well, yeah, or when they start like talking Bugs Bunny and he's like, what is going on? Why are you? This is terrible. And for the first time since I've watched this movie, I kind of connected with him in that moment and said, yeah, you're right. This is how I felt back then watching the movie. But unfortunately, the movie doesn't really do anything with that. It shows that Ethan Hawke, Ben, he's disappointed and confused, but that's as far as they take it. I mean, he's the audience in that scene, but they don't do anything with it. It's like, well, it seemed like they were going for maybe a bit of a message with, well, we don't want to go to Earth because all you do is blow up people like us. Because they showed like this island Earth and the day the Earth stood still.
War of the Worlds and all that.
And they're like, well, all you do is kill aliens, so why would we visit you? But they didn't even take that very far.
The only thing they really did in the movie is they used... Oh, by the way, this was the theatrical premiere of Ethan Hawke.
And River Phoenix.
And of Jason Presson, who played the third
One of these things
kid,
is not like the other.
Who was Darren Woods, who actually I thought didn't do a bad job acting.
Yeah, he was actually, I thought he was really good, too.
And there was good chemistry with these kids, for sure. But they tried to use the Darren character, Jason Presson, as the glue that connected everything, because he was the social kid who joined up with the nerds, and he bridged their
Well,
gap.
I wouldn't say he was the social kid. He was kind of an outcast in his own way. He was like poor.
Yeah, he was poor, and you're right, but he would have been the bully in some movies, but he was the one that befriended the nerds and stuck up for him. And when they're on the alien ship, it was him that recognized the relationship between Whack and the big goofy
he brought,
thing
like,
as a father-son.
A real world sensibility.
Yeah. And that was as much humanity and connection that they brought into that movie, especially in the third act, as they could, to try and make some sense out of it. And it was weak. It was a bad attempt. But the strong points of this movie, aside from the absolutely absurd third act, was the cast. I thought the cast did a great job. I thought the kids together were fantastic. Apparently, River Phoenix was up for the Darren job first, and then they gave him the Wolfgang thing. And there's some fun scenes in the movie. I think as a kid, there are definitely some elements, and we've discussed this on the podcast before, what makes movies so memorable and important to people. And I think the Jerry Goldsmith score was a very important part of that. I thought the music in the movie was definitely had that kind of inspiration, tone that I always remembered. And the theme, I think, is very recognizable even today for me. And it was in the right place at the right time. The movie landed at the right place. It just finished bad, and it got lost in the shuffle. Now, I saw it on video. I didn't see it in the theater at 10 years old, and I liked it. And I kind of fell into that little cult status of it. I enjoyed the movie for a while. I haven't seen it in a while until just recently when Jared and I saw it about a week ago. It was in the right place at the right time. It just suffered from mismanagement, a little studio politics. And by the way, when they released it, the studio was so excited. They thought we had the perfect date. And it turned out that it was the same weekend as the Live Aid concert.
Oh,
so
yes.
Everyone wound up staying at home watching Live Aid, and nobody saw it on opening weekend. It made $10 million gross, the movie, and then got shuffled out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Well, I think something I read that's kind of interesting because they say it's developed kind of a cult status.
Yes.
Is, apparently Joe Dante's even sort of been like, no, guys, seriously, it's not that good. He was like, this is not the movie we were trying to make.
Yeah, I know. I remember reading somewhere it's difficult for him to watch it because he knows what he wanted to do and wasn't able to. But there's a couple interesting notes. When I saw it as a kid, obviously I had the VHS. I made a copy of it. We had 2 VCRs in my house, so we did the old
fancy.
Yeah, the old punch and crunch piracy. So we'd rent a movie and then just copy it. But please, you can't arrest me for that anymore. If somebody hears this, I can't be arrested, so don't even try it. We're in the 25th century. There's no police. But anyway, the version I watched was missing a few scenes from the copy of the film that I watched just recently. It did not have the scene where the bullies confront Ben on his bike, or it's Wolfgang. They rip his pants and knock his books out. That was not in the VHS I saw. But the VHS I did have a scene that's not in the copy I just watched. At the end of the movie, there is, as part of the dream sequence, Ben sees the Thunder Road sitting in his classroom. And I specifically remember that in the version that I grew up with.
Right. I remember that, yeah.
But I'm really curious about this 3-hour cut. I mean, how in the heck could you even stretch that? If it's another hour and a half of those aliens doing stand-up comedy, oh, man.
Yeah, that was Frank Welker, by the way, that did the voice for the father.
Yes. Robert Picardo, again, he was in the suit. He did the Star Killer character, and he did... Man, that Star Killer movie, I wish they just put that out so you could...
That Star Killer would be amazing.
It just went... And they're all out of sync, and, their lips, their lip sync is off, and that is hilarious.
Well, they ran out of money, apparently, with the costumes. If you watch the movie, Whack and the father have elaborate headpieces on for their costume, but their mouth is Robert Picardo's. It just has makeup on it. And they ran out of money for the prosthetic for the mouth, so they just...
It's just his mouth.
It's just his mouth. And Robert Picardo would complain, apparently, he said the whack contraption on his head, he's like, it was like wearing a typewriter on his head, and it's like, it was hard to balance.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let him take it off once he had it on all day because it was too extensive. And the father's character, he said it was like having a television on his head. It was so heavy. And he said by the end of like the first week of shooting with the father's headpiece on, he was getting sores on his head. He was just miserable. Robert Picardo does not have a good memory of this movie.
Yeah,
but it's such a disappointment is what it is, because Explorers at its core had the right kind of DNA to make it work. It was at the right place, the right time with those kind of movies when it came out. It was still, the E.T. high was still going. Goonies was just hitting it. I think Goonies was released early this summer. It was a summer movie, wasn't it? It just couldn't put the pieces together to make it work. And when you look at the movie...
Another thing, too, about that movie is the ending just makes no sense.
Yeah, it's
where they're just, hey, we're flying. I can't wait till we wake up. The end. And the girl gets pulled in. I mean, the girl might not as well not have been in the movie. She served no purpose.
Poor Amanda Peterson. You can go look up Amanda's life. She's had a rough life.
Really? I'm curious.
Yeah. Go Google Amanda Peterson sometime.
Is that the actress's name?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to say, though, when I saw the movie, I was 11 years old. So you're talking in sixth grade, right? Middle school years for me. My college for you. And but that's the age where you're noticing girls and that stuff is becoming important to you. So the Amanda Peterson character in the movie to me was she was hot. He kind of had a thing for her. He was the flirting, and then he kissed her at the end. He kissed her, man, it's fantastic. I'm like, oh my god, he kissed the girl.
Yeah. And he was a nerdy kid who watched sci-fi movies.
Yeah, so I mean, there was a lot of stuff to like about that movie as a kid, and there's a lot of stuff to not like. And I don't think I hated the movie as a kid. Like the end, I never hated it. I always liked the movie, and I watched it a lot, but it was always a confusing movie, and it always left you asking why.
Well, I tell you, it's the first half of the film that gets me through it all the time.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I think it's great. I think anybody today, any of our younger listeners who are like enamored of Stranger Things or anything like that, Explorers is in Stranger Things DNA. I think you need to go back and watch Explorers if you haven't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's the same kind of adventure. Although now it doesn't go anywhere at all.
Hey, Mike, did you notice? I think when Dick Miller was on screen, I think he was reading a paper that said it was something like riot in Kingston Falls or something like that. Riot in Kingston.
No, but
unexplained.
That's from Gremlins.
Yeah, it was like still unexplained or something. So they tied it in that way for the Joe Dante films. But I think he was reading that paper itself, which just makes it funny.
Yeah, it was like incident still unexplained. That was a really quick thing.
Oh, no, I didn't. That's the dangers of watching stuff on a small screen. You don't catch that stuff.
It was quick, too, but he was like, I think it was him reading that paper, or it was either the person next to him reading the paper said, like, riot still unexplained in Kingston Falls or something like that.
So Explorers and Gremlins live in the same universe.
Yes, that's the first shared universe of Explorers and Gremlins.
Well, you know what? The kid that plays Darren is in Gremlins 2.
Is he?
Yeah, he's running the yogurt shop, the ice cream shop.
Man.
Oh, wow.
So that's what he did after Explorers. He went to the city, worked for Clamp.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
He got a job.
I always liked him in that role, and I don't think he was a bad actor. I think he was as fine an actor as any of the other kids. His chemistry worked fine.
There's always that one.
I'd love to find out. I have to research why Darren just kind of disappeared, and we'll get him on the show and we'll interview him. We'll ask him on a follow up.
Dude, I would totally enjoy that. Something else I noticed, and this you could probably apply this to a lot of films of this era.
Jason Preston, whatever his name is.
Jason Preston, yeah. Is just the blatant bullying, the stuff they do to Wolfgang at the beginning, and then the fight they get into. I mean, this is stuff the cops would be called on nowadays.
Oh,
like when they're ripping his pants off and.
Yeah, they're ripping the pants. I was like, whoa, too far.
That kid would have a GoFundMe page by now.
They could start playing Achy Breaky Heart. I mean, come on, it's too much.
They went too far. Yeah. That's the school of hard knocks we grew up in. We had bullies who knocked our books off and ripped our pants.
That one bully was on Silver Spoons.
Silver Spoons?
Yeah.
Or Stand By Me?
There's one from Stand By Me in there. He was the brother of I think it was River Phoenix's brother in the movie. He was one of the bullies.
I love the old Apple computer they were using.
With the 9-volt battery.
Yeah, I know. It's only 128K. I'm like, good God. What? And then, I've got the trivia, of course, from the film, and it's the computer they were actually using in the movie cost $35,000.
No way.
It was an SGI Iris 1400 workstation. It contained a 73 megabyte hard drive, 1.5 megabytes of memory, and weighed 130 pounds.
That's a strong computer back then.
Yeah.
That's a serious computer back then. For those who doubt those specs, trust me, in 1985, that was like the Ferrari of computers.
So, because apparently they wanted to render the 3D wireframe stuff real time, and they didn't want to, add it later with animation. So that was the only computer that was strong enough to do that.
Wow. That's amazing.
So, anyway, that's craziness.
Now that would be in like a computer chip inside of a keychain or something like that.
Yeah, easily. It's amazing.
So seeing Explorers, Mike, missing it for all of these years, what grade are you going to give Explorers?
Well, I think some of it is Joe Dante's finest work, and it's interesting. One thing I didn't meant to bring up, that when the first thing the alien says is, "What's up, Doc?" is that's what Joe Dante is like a big fan of, that type of humor. Mm-hmm. If you see like Gremlins 2, it's written all. In fact, the female alien looked like the female gremlin, I thought.
A little bit.
From Gremlins 2, with the green hair, the long green hair, and the big eyes, and the lips. But
well, you saw the high school they went to, Charles M. Jones High School, Chuck Jones.
Oh yeah, see, I know that Dante's obviously a huge fan of that type of thing.
Yeah,
and he's made some really good movies.
He directed Space Jam, didn't he?
Oh, I don't know. But he did Gremlins 2. He did The Burbs, which I love. The Burbs.
Love The Burbs.
Yeah, The Burbs is great.
But having said that, the movie's it falls apart. It doesn't go anywhere. It's probably going to be like a D for me.
Wow, a D.
Yeah, it's a shame because, it just literally goes nowhere. It goes absolutely nowhere.
You're not wrong.
No, I think if I had just seen it at this age, I'd probably be in your shoes as well.
As a kid, that'd be amazing. And the stuff, like I said, the stuff where they're flying around for the first time is really great. But the movie just, I just don't see myself ever watching it again.
Mm-hmm. Jared, what about you?
Well, I'm going to be a little kinder just because, I grew up with it. So I'm gonna give it a B. I think it warrants a B just for the first 45 minutes alone. But like I've said many times, it's the first time a movie really broke my heart, and I do not forgive and I do not forget.
I'm gonna give it a nostalgic B-. I think.
Okay.
There's the right stuff there. It just, it's like it's like getting a sundae and having them put ketchup on it instead of whipped cream at the end. And it just doesn't work.
Yeah, well, I think that.
When you get past the ketchup, it's fine.
I would think the ketchup, to me, it'd be more like if you got some chocolate and it had some motor oil in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It looks good.
You'd enjoy.
Tasty.
All right.
And then you get to the motor oil, and you're like, "What the hell am I eating?"
Motor oil.
Yeah, you eat half of it, and it's delicious, and then you're like, "What?"
But Explorers, I still think Explorers is worth watching if you've never seen it. And what Jared was saying, especially if you're a fan of those kinds of movies like E.T. and Goonies and Stranger Things, this is right up your alley. This still works. It still is worth a watch. Joe Dante did good work in it. But it's worth a watch. It's interesting. The
lesson to learn is if you're working on a movie and halfway through the production, the heads change, you might as well just walk off the set.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm out.
So, guys, I think I'm gonna go hit the hay, see if that reoccurring dream comes back where I can scribble something again on the wall with some unnamed
well,
ink.
Unfortunately, there's no junkyards in the 25th century, so we won't be able to. We'll have to find other things to make the spaceship out of.
Well, there's really spaceships here. We could actually take a spaceship.
That's true, but it's cooler to build your own from junk.
That's true. By the way, before we go on, I have to say, one of the things that I didn't connect with at all in the movie ever as a kid was naming the ship Thunder Road.
Yeah, who cares about Bruce Springsteen? Jeez. He had one song that everyone liked, and other than that...
was not the song that everyone liked.
Yeah, no.
And I had no idea what Thunder Road was, and to this day I still think that was a big miss on that movie. It was hoping that people would pick up on a great reference that I don't think anybody ever liked that name.
Named it like a Crosby, Stills and Nash song or something. Summer Breeze. Let's call it Summer Breeze.
It just really missed on the name.
I think River Phoenix and Ethan Hawke, they gave up that fight a little too easily. They're both like, let's call it the Magellan or the Einstein. They're like, how about Thunder Road? And they're like, yeah, that's cool. Like, what are you talking about? You don't even know what that is.
Yeah,
Nobody does.
No, didn't work.
They felt bad for him.
Yeah, they did. He had to contribute something.
I'm gonna go to sleep and go dream about weird Tron-like things with graphics about the same.
Well, I dream that every night, so I guess I should be writing it down.
You know what we'd love for you, the listener, to do is subscribe. Hey, leave a review. Tell people about us.
Review us. If your podcatcher allows it, give us a review. And make sure it's good, or we'll find you.
We'll dream about you.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to the Hyperspace Podcasting in the 25th Century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us next time as we take you into the 25th century.